Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to explain to you the following XSL topics: XSL Variable, XSL If, XSL Choose, and these two functions right over here, the sum and the count. We will apply all these topics to this XSL file that I already created using this XML file. But before that, please support the channel by clicking on the subscribe button and hit also the notification bell so that you will be notified with all the new videos that I'm going to upload in this channel. And so, like I said, let's discuss the following topics: the XSL variable, the XSL if, the XSL choose, the sum, and the count function. We will apply all these topics to this XSL that I already created. This is advanced topic because I already explained in my previous video about how to create an XSL file or how to process an XML file using an XSL file. We have that video, of course, in this channel, and the thumbnail that I used there is this one here: what is XSL, how to process an XML file using XSL. So better, I suggest that you have to watch this one first, because I discussed there how to get the data of an XML file and process this data using XSL. And so that is the video. So watch that first before this one here. And so let's apply our topic to this XSL that we have. Let's start off with running first this XSL right over here. Again, this XSL I use this XML here to display all the data, not all the data, but the employee number, department ID, this ID here, as well as the name. Okay. If you run this XSL here, the output of that will be something like this. I use a Firefox browser to run, of course, this XSL that we have right here. And again, just to have a recap on how to run this XSL file, we have to run our XML file. It is actually the XML file that you need to run. And so the easiest way to run this is to click and drag this file right over here in our browser. That is the simplest way to run it. So it's going to be like that. Okay, and again, do not forget that you have to specify this line number 2 here. You're going to specify the name of the XSL file that you will use or that will process this XML file, as you can see here. So that is why, like I said, it is actually the XML file that you need to drag in the browser or run in the browser to test it if it is working or not. Okay, so it's going to be like that. Again, all those videos or all those topics that I have mentioned were discussed in this video here. And so let's apply first the if statement here. Well, in any programming language, if statement will be there. There is always an if statement. So it is also the same here in XSL. There is also an if statement wherein you can test a certain condition or a set of conditions. because if statement, and actually choose here is another one. Okay, this is to test a certain condition or set of conditions. Okay, so that's the purpose of it. So this is the syntax of it. It's only very simple. Again, XSL if, and then your test, and then your condition here. This is the syntax of it. And then it should end with /XSL if. Okay, inside this element, XSL if, will be your instruction if this condition is true. So whenever this condition is true, it will come here, or it will go here inside, or between your beginning XSL if and ending XSL if. So you may put any instructions here. You may want to write something. You may want to compute something and display that computation. It's possible here. Okay, you can have more than one instruction inside this area here. So let us try to apply it. For instance, I have let's test the depth department ID. Let us use this depth ID to test it. So if it is 1, let's say I'm going to write it right here. Let's try it here. So if it is 1, let's say I'm just going to write sales department. So that's the department ID. So we will be testing the depth ID. So if it is 2, let's say it is finance department. So whenever the depth ID is 1, it will print sales. We will print sales. And if it is 2, we will print finance using the if statement. And what we will do is we will display the sales and the finance department in another column. So right now, when we run our XSL program, we have 2 columns. So we will add another column here. Okay, so let's call that column as department. Okay, so what will happen again is that in this column, we will display either sales department or finance department. Okay, depending on the value of the depth ID here. So if it is 1, we have sales. If it is 2, we will display finance. And so since we need another column here, so let's have another column right over here. So let's call it as department. Alright. And since it is another column, so obviously we have to put it right here. Okay, I just put here what we want to do, so but it will be here. So obviously we need a TD here because it will be on the last column. So I will put my column right over here. There you go. Okay, so it will be something like this. And so the syntax again is very simple. So all you need to do is to use this syntax. So let's have it right over here. We will say, okay, and again, do not forget that there should be /XSL if. There you go. So you have to put here the attribute test. Okay, and then the value will be your condition. So what is our condition? Our condition is that if the department ID is 1, we will print sales. If 2, we will print finance. But you have to notice that the depth ID is an attribute. So since it is an attribute, so we will just say eno/@depth ID. Because it is an attribute. So we will say @depth ID. It is an attribute of ENO. That's why we have to put element E and O here. So this is how we test it. So if it is equal to 1, so we can just simply say something like this. Okay, so if it is true, then we will just say sales here. Okay, so let's try to test it first. Let's see if it is going to run. So it is already running actually here. All we need to do is to refresh it. Right, so because we have some changes here. Oh, by the way, we have to remove this one first so that it will not be processed. So let's go back here. I'm going to refresh now. And so as you can see, it printed the word or the name of the department, which is sales. Okay. Now, the problem with the if is that it doesn't have an else if or else statement. Unlike other programming language, higher level for programming language, it has else statement. But here in XSL, there is no else statement. So how can we test the second condition, which is if it is 2, like for example here for the second record here. So if it is 2, we have to print finance. So if that is the case, since there is no else statement, so again, we will be using the if statement again. So it will be like this. So this time, you will be testing the 2. So if it is 2, or to test the 2, so finance. There you go. Okay, so it's going to be like this. Let us test it. Again, I'm going to remove this thing here. I just put it there so that we have a reference to what we are going to do. And I'm going to refresh now here. This is our Firefox browser. So I just make it small. So if you want to maximize it, it's also possible. I just resized it to small a while ago. So there you go. When I refresh, I have the finance department here. So what happens is because there is no else statement, what happened is that whenever this is true, it will execute this, line 27. And then it will go to the next line, which is 29. And again, it will go to the 30. So in the 30, it's still it will process this one here. It will still test this one. So that is how it works. So it will test all the if statement that you have because there is no else statement. So it will test this. If this is false, it will jump to 30. And then if this is true, then it will execute finance. If this is false, it will just jump to line 33. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. Okay, so it will test all our conditions here because there is no if statement. There is no else part. Okay, so that's how it works. All right. So the if statement is best recommended in XSL if you have only one condition. If you have one condition, that is just fine. If you have more than one, it is also fine. But again, it will test all the the conditions here. All your if statement will be tested, or they will be executed or tested. Okay, so there's another one. There's another conditional statement, and that is what we call the XSL Choose. This one, if you have more than one condition, this is much better because whenever a set of condition is met, when one condition is true already, then it will execute all the statements for that true part, for that condition, after which it goes immediately out of the XSL Choose here. So for instance, if this is true, then it will execute all the statements in 17, starting from 17, and then immediately it goes out, it goes to 26. That's how it is. It will never test anymore the other conditions. That's how it is. So that's why this is more better if you have more than one condition to test. Okay, and then on the last part, we have here the otherwise. This means that if this condition, the first condition, or your conditions above, all your conditions above the otherwise, if all of those are false, then it will execute the otherwise. This is the default value, something like that. All right. So when this condition is false, this is also false. Immediately it jumps to otherwise, and then 23 set of statements in 23, starting from 23 and 24, and it will go out. That's how this one is working. All right. So let us test it here. Let's try to implement this choose right over here. Okay, so as you can see, the if statement is only very simple. Now let us remove this if statement now here. So I'm just going to use a comment. Okay, so oops, I think I have a mistake in my comment. It should be like this, and I will just end it with something like this. Okay, still I am inside the TD because I'm going to display here either the sales or the finance. All right, so it's going to be like this. So this time I'm going to say XSL Choose, and don't forget immediately to put the ending XSL Choose. Again, if we will visit the syntax, it will be something like this. Inside the XSL Choose will be the XSL When. Okay, so the XSL When is the element to choose to test for the condition. So when, and then you will have to test. So your condition will be inside. So as you can see, immediately it gives me this ending element. So all I need to do is to just enter it. Okay, so your condition should be inside your attribute, inside the quotation of your attribute test. That will be your condition. So we have already our condition here. I will just copy this and put it here. So if this is true, then I can say now, you have to print the sales. Okay. So if you have another one, you can have something like this. Or if you have only two, perhaps you can use the otherwise, since you have only two conditions. Okay, so we can say now here otherwise, XSL otherwise. There you go. As you can see, it's heavy like this. There you go. So when this is false, immediately it goes to the otherwise. So this is the default value, so something like that. Okay. But when this condition is true, line 36 is true, it will execute 37, and then immediately it goes out of the choose. So definitely it will go to 43. So if we will test this, I think we will have the same answer with this when we use this XSL If. So as you can see. Okay. Now, if you have another condition to test, that is not a problem. Let's say we have three conditions. So we just have to copy that one here, and I will just paste it here. I just pasted it here. So if it is 2, then perhaps we can say human resource department. Human resources. So something like that. So we have 3 conditions now. When it is 1, we say sales. When it is 2, human resources. Otherwise, it will be finance. So if it is not sales, if it is not human resource department, then it is finance. So it is like this. However, you have also the option not to use the otherwise. If you don't like a default value, so do not use the otherwise. So you can test it again if you wish to. I mean, you have to you can test for the value of finance. Let's say if it is 3, it will be finance. So all you need to do is to, again, copy this one. Okay, because we're just copying because so that we will be a little bit faster in what we are trying to do. So we can say here finance. There you go. So there is no need for this. If you wish to test everything, let's say 1, 2, and 3, you are specific, you are certain that the values can be 1, 2, and 3. So it will be like this. Okay. So if you don't like to test the last condition, then you can use the otherwise statement. Okay. So it's going to be something like that. Okay. So again, let's return into the original. So all I need to do, well, I'm going to use, okay, so like that. So I hope you were able to understand what this means again. This is a comment here. Okay, so again, you can use otherwise to have a default value. If you don't like to have otherwise, you are certain of a particular, of your possible conditions, 1, 2, and 3, then you can test the last one, the last condition. So that's possible. Okay, so it's going to be like that. So when we run this again, of course, don't forget to save. Again, refresh it, and there you go. Okay, so sales, human resource. Our 2 is now human resource. We changed it. Okay, so it's going to be like that. So as you can see, the if statement and the choose statement are just very easy in XSL. Okay. Now let's try to use now a variable. Okay, how do we use a variable here? All right, a variable is, in any programming language, is, my personal definition for this is, it's any given name with a value. Okay, that's a variable. It's any given name with a value, and that value may change during program execution. Okay, so let's try to implement that. So for instance, let us try to compute here salary and benefit. Okay, again, what will happen is that we will compute for salary and benefit. We will add these two. We will call it as, let's say, total pay. We will add another column here, total pay. Okay, and the value for the column will be the sum of salary and benefit. But this time we will be using a variable. In our previous example, in our previous video, this one that I'm referring to, we did not use a variable, but we were able to compute. Okay, this one is very simple, salary and benefit. There is no need for a variable actually here. You have the option not to use variable. Okay, but in this discussion, we will be using variable. Well, it has many advantages, which I'm going to discuss later on. So let's continue by computing these two, and we will assign whatever we computed to the variable total pay. So let's do something like that. So I'm going to add another column here. So let's call it as total pay. So we have another column. It will be the last column. So it will be something right over here, right here. So I'm going to put my TD here. Right, there you go. Okay, so the variable, if you would like to have a variable, so I'm just going to copy this. Okay, you just have to follow that syntax. So to create a variable, it is something like this. So XSL variable, you have to type XSL variable. That's the name of the element, XSL variable, and then it has two attributes, the name and the select. The name is obviously the name of the variable. Let's say the name of the variable, let's call it as total pay. right? So it's total pay. Let's call it as something like this. And then the value will be, I'm going to say here, let's say if we say 10 here, so you are saying that the value of total pay is 10. Okay, it is similar to other programming language. Let's say in C, you will say int total pay is equal to 10. So in C, it is something like this. Okay, so in XSL, it will be something like this. So you are assigning the 10, the value 10 to total pay. Right, so something like that. However, in this example, we will not be using like that. I mean, we will not be doing like that. What we want is the computation of the sum of salary and benefit. So all I need to do is to, instead of 10, okay, again, is it will become like this. So I'm going to say salary multiplied by benefit. Sorry, we will add, no? So plus benefit. All right. So the sum of this will be in the total pay. Okay. Now, how do we display the value of the total pay? So to display the value of the total pay, we will be using XSL value of. So something similar to this. So I'm just going to copy this. We will be using the value, the element XSL value of. Okay, again, the purpose of the XSL value of is to get the value of an element. All right, here, for example, we want to get the value of inning. So that's one use. Another use is we can use the XSL value of to print or to display the value of a variable. So our variable is total pay. So the XSL value of has two purposes. One is to display the value of an element, XML element, or to display the value of a variable. Now, when displaying the variable, XSL variable, okay, you have to make sure that you have the dollar. It should begin with the dollar sign. So it will be total pay, dollar total pay. Okay, so let's try to see it, if it is working. Let's open again our Firefox. This time I'm going to refresh it again. And there you go. All right. So 2,500 plus 150, that would be 2,650. And obviously 2,000 plus 120, that would be 2,120. So that's how it is. Okay. So, and do not forget that you can always format this. I already discussed this formatting function in our previous video about XSL. So if you would like to format this, you can say format dash number, all right, and then this is the variable that we want to, okay, this is the variable we want to format. Again, it has two parameters. This function format number has two parameters. The first parameter is the variable you want to format, and the second parameter will be the format or formatting you would like to take into effect, all right, or to implement. So something like with 3 decimal numbers. So let's see. So I'm going to refresh, and there you go. We have now here a formatted total pay. Okay, so it's going to be something like this. Again, for you to see it clearly, so it will be something like that. Okay. Now, the nice thing about this variable is that I can use this value now, this variable value, into any other things that I would like to do. Let's say, for instance, I'm going to test for the value of total pay using the XSL If or using the XSL Choose. That would be possible. Or if I would like to use it in another computation, that will be possible. Okay, so that's the nice thing about the variable, because it has a value, so I may use that value in other things that I need to do. Okay, so for instance, let us apply some tax For example, let's have some tax for the total pay. Okay, so for instance, if we say if the total pay, let's apply something like this. If the total pay is more than 2,500, and then our tax will be something like 5% of the tax. I mean, sorry, total pay. Something like this. Okay, so all right. So we can apply something like this. All right. So if the total pay is from 2,500 to, let's make it 1,500 to 2,499.99. All right. So our will be 3%, for instance. Let's have something like this. Otherwise, if it is below, total pay is below, let's say 1,500, then it will be 0%. All right, 0%, or there's no tax. Okay, so let's have something like that. So how do we do that? Again, I need a TD. No? So let's put it in another column. All right, so I'm going to go back at the top part of our program. I'm going to put here the column tax. So what will happen is that we are going to add here another column. Let's call it tax. All right, using these conditions here. So it is based on the computation of the total pay. So if you wish to do that, so let's continue. So TD, we have here, and /TD. There you go. All right. So I have some minor error here, so I'm just going to. All right. So it's like this. So I put a comment so that it will not give me an error. All right. So here it is. So again, we will implement XSL Choose. So XSL Choose right over here. There you go. Okay. So I'm just going to copy the XSL when, so that we will be a little bit faster. So I'm just going to here. There you go. So what will be our condition now here? Our condition will be, again, since I'm going to use now the variable total pay, again, whenever you would like to use a variable, XSL variable, make sure you put first the $sign and then the variable total pay. However, again, do not forget, whenever you introduce first, or whenever you create a variable and then you initialize with a certain value, there is no need for the $sign there, as you can see here. But every time you will use it now, this time, after declaration, then you have to use the $sign here. So if the total pay is greater than, okay, this time, we will not be using the greater than symbol like this. All right. Okay, as you can see, there will be something like confusion here, right? Because of the greater than sign here, then you have another greater than sign here. So what we will be using will be the entity for the greater than sign, which is the ampersand GT semicolon. This is the greater than sign. So if it is greater than 2,500, all right. Okay, so what happened now again? All right, there you go. Oops. Wait, it has an auto-complete, so So let me have it. Total pay greater than 2,500. If that is the case, or you can say greater than or equal, all right, greater than or equal 2,500, then what will be the computation? So your computation now will be 5% of the total pay. And since it is a computation, you will not say something like this. You will not say 0.05 multiplied by dollar total pay. You will not say something like this because this is something like string literal, so it will just print all of this. It will just display all of this. Okay, here it will display all of this here. All right, so it should be computed. So to compute it properly, we have to use the XSL value of. Okay, again, that's another purpose of the XSL value of. Okay, for computation. So I'm going to say XSL value dash of. All right, and then select equal. That will be now like this, and there you go. So it will be something like this now. So this is the third purpose of the XSL value of. So the third purpose of the XSL value of is for computation. All right, so let us see. Let us see. This one should supposed to have a, it will compute here. No, I mean this one with our first record, this condition will be processed. No, it will be executed because obviously it is more than 2,500. Let us see if it is true. I'm going to refresh now. There you go. So 5% of 2,650 is 132.5. All right. So that's how it is. All right. So if you wish to verify that, let us have our calculator. There you go. So again, there you go. So 2,650 multiplied by 0.05. There you go, 132.5, and that's what we have here, right? So our code is actually correct. Okay, so let's continue with the second condition. If you have another condition, so you will just say here, okay, greater than equal, well, the shortcut will be 1,500 here, and if that is true, it will be 3%, right? That's our condition. And if you don't like to test for the last condition, then we just have to use the otherwise. So I'm just going to copy the otherwise here, so that, there you go. So since it is 0 only, so we just have to put there 0. Or you can use also the XSL value of, select, and then you just have to put the 0. Okay, so we can just say something like this, because we're just going to print 0 anyway, right? So you can just say like this. So if you don't like to put the 0, because it's only 0, so, or this one here, it doesn't matter, both of them are correct. So let's just make it simple, only like this, and there you go. So when we run it again, here, refresh. So we have here 63 point something like this. Okay, 0.599. You just have to format it to at least 3 decimals. Okay, you can apply formatting here, right over here, or right over here. Okay, so that's how it is. So it's correct, right? So that is the way to use the variable, XSL variable. Let us see the other topics here. So we have here sum and the count function. Okay, so, well, these are functions that has meaning. So for instance, for the sum, The purpose of the sum function is to, well, get a sum of a particular element. For instance, we would like to get all the sum of all the salary. So we have salary here, we have salary here. So obviously this will be added. So if you have another third record here, so including that one will be added. So sum salary means this one here and this one here. That's the purpose of the sum. Just to get the sum, all right, of a particular element name. So for instance, let us try to implement that and print the sum of all the salary right after our table, for instance. So right our table, it will be here. So I'm going to say here total salary, for instance. So I can say here the sum, no? I'm going to use the sum. So in combination with the sum, you have to use, again, every time you would like to display something, you have to use XSL value dash off, then select. So I'm going to put here the sum, open. You make sure that you put the correct path here, right? Again, the path is important. Okay, so where is salary? So salary is here. So the path to go to the salary is through company, MPREC, and then finally the salary. That's how you do it. No? Why we are doing something like that now, this time? Why we did not do it here? All right. So it's because we are now outside our loop statement. As you can see in our loop statement, we already specified the path to get this ENO and ENAME. We already specified the company and the MPREC path. Now, since our loop statement ended here, so that path is no longer existing here in line 82 and line 83. So therefore, if you would like to get the value of salary, then you have to specify the complete path again. So therefore, what we will do is company here slash MPREC slash salary. There you go. So let us test this one here. So it will be here below the table. That is where we put it, right? It is below the table, so I'm going to refresh now. So as you can see, 4,500. Okay, so because this one here is 2,500 and this one is 2,000, so that makes it 4,500. Right, so it's going to be like that. The next one and the last one will be the count function. Okay, so I'm going to put it here, count function, in line 84. Now we will implement it in line 84. Now, what's the purpose of the count function? Simply, the count function, it's a function that we can use for counting, no? Counting the existence of an element. Okay, you have to, it is used for counting the existence of an element. Number of times it is used or it was used. For instance, ename, how many times ename was used? You are not certain about it, so you can use the count function. So it means one here and another one here, so that should give you 2. How many times the MPREC was used? 1, then 2. So you can use the count. So in essence, we can say how many records we have. Right now we have 2, so we can actually use the count. So technically we can say, or we can use the count, okay, and we will say count MPREC because the MPREC is our element for separating the data of each of our records, right? So we can say here total records. All right. So again, so that it will go to the next line. So I'm going to say like this, total records. So again, I'm just going to copy this, put it here. But this time I'm going to say count company, MPREC. I'm just going to count the MPREC. There you go. How many times the MPREC was used? Okay, so technically, in essence, we can use also this one to count the number of records. So we should have 2, right? So when we test now, refresh, and there you go, we have 2 records here, 2. But again, the purpose of the count function is to count the existence of an element. All right, so I hope you understand all these topics here, or our example code here, okay, using or have with the topics that we have, the XSL variable, the if, the choose, the sum function, and the count function. Okay, so if you like this video, if you have learned something in this video, please click on the like button. You can also share this video to your friends, all right, classmates. Let them learn in this video. Well, I guess that's it for this video. I'll see you again on my next video. Thank you very much.